Hey everyone, it's Mike. I am back, and this week we are going to be talking about how I built a 100-foot mine shaft set in my backyard for my feature film, They Are Mine. To start at the beginning, I wrote a feature film, and part of the film consisted of the characters falling into these abandoned mine shafts. And the town they lived in was a mining town. It kind of evaporated because the industry dissolved basically, and there were these abandoned mine shaft tunnels. And so the story called for all the characters to fall into these mine shafts, and they get trapped in there. So the problem I was facing was that there weren't really any mine shafts where I lived on Cape Cod. So I landed on I needed to build these things. So I decided to build them. There were a couple of things that kind of helped make this possible. One being my parents allowed me to build the set in their backyard, and I was living with my parents at the time. So this it made a location accessible whenever we needed it, and I could continuously work on it, day and night. And also my dad, when I was growing up, he would build these haunted houses for our neighbors and just people in the town. And so he was always kind of tinkering and building like little arts and crafts projects like that. He had the mind of a set decorator or set builder. So he initially helped me kind of create the structure of these mine shafts, which was super helpful to kind of get me started. And then I just took over, and day by day I would work on this construction. I had a place. I had a friend, Rob, who also worked on the film as a makeup special effects person, kind of helped with bloody effects, bald caps, and, fingers getting cut off and stuff like that. So Rob worked at a hardware store, and a lot of times in these shipments that the hardware store gets from other companies, they'll be on pallets. And so he would let me know anytime that there were extra pallets left over. They would just kind of be over by the dumpster. And so whenever they were available, he would call me, and I would go over and I would start collecting these pallets. The pallets, over 50 pallets. I mean, we had a lot of pallets, dozens of pallets, and the pallets were kind of the basis for the tunnels, like the sides of the walls. So we used those and we stacked them. My job at the time, I worked at a place that sold stand-up paddle boards, and they came in these boxes, these cardboard boxes. I used the remains of these cardboard boxes to kind of fill in the holes from the pallets. And so basically with pallets and cardboard, we created the walls of this mine shaft. And so I would work this job, all week and save up my money. And at the end of the week, I would get my paycheck and I would go and buy, a lot of screws and paint and other supplies. Little by little, I kept building it piece by piece. And the pallets really became the framework for the tunnels. There was the tunnels, and then there was one large cave entrance that the kids fall through initially. How we built that was my dad had an old A-frame playground set, a wooden A-frame playground set. It was probably about 15 feet long, like this long 15-piece beam, and maybe about 12 feet in the air. Well, we kind of stilted it up to be about 12 feet in the air. So that was like the dome of this cave we built. And then we would use like chicken wire, some paper mache, cardboard, painting canvas blankets, like drop cloths, basically. Old newspaper, and we kind of just stuffed it all and molded it into the shape we wanted. I got brown paint. I also worked a summer painting houses, so I kind of had a little bit of experience painting. So I sprayed down the whole cave, the whole structure, the inside of the set, brown paint. And as the paint was wet, I would throw dirt and debris onto the paint so that it would stick to it and it create this texture. I wrapped the outside with tarps to weatherproof it from the rain. I also used plastic sheeting, like a thick mill, and it didn't let any light in because these are supposed to be underground, so there really can't be any light other than artificial lights that we built into the set. Other than that, we used, to fill in some of the holes and the gaps, we used some of that canned foam insulation to seal it. And then I lived near a junkyard, and I also lived near the dump. So we would go to the dump, and a lot of times there would be stuff that people are throwing away that you kind of go through whatever leftovers they have and pull things. I think we got some like metal pieces, metal sheeting from someone used that I ended up using for in the torture room. And I also found a chandelier that was also in the torture room. And then at the junkyard, there was an old school bus deteriorating, and I pulled off the door from the school bus, and we built that into the set for one of the rooms that the characters have to kind of smash the window to break into. for the lighting, we made it so it was dark, pitch black. And then I just ended up using work clamp lights that we hung like about every 10 feet ish in the shaft, just down. And we used clear bulbs, probably like 100 watt. And it created a cool, eerie top down lighting effect. The light would just fall off into darkness. So it was like these pools of light. And it was also cool if someone hit the lamp, it would move, it would sway. It'd create a cool effect as well. I had no idea like how long it would take me to build this whole thing. And so really just every time I would work on creating this structure. It just piece by piece, I would just keep going and keep screwing it together. But eventually, when we ended up filming, I think I cast this in February, and we filmed some stuff in the snow, which was part of the story. So we had to capture the winter stuff. And then by the time like finished the cave, I think it was the summer, like, so it was super hot inside and dusty and sweaty, but we did it. We got what we needed. At this point, I think by the end of the summer, I started editing and putting this all together. And I realized I needed some more stuff in the snow. So I kind of had to wait a couple months until it snowed again. And I left the cave up just in case. And I remember parts of the cave like actually caved in from the weight of the snow sitting on top of parts of the mineshaft. So I had to rebuild those. We got through it and we got everything we needed. And it was a super advantage to having a set right in my backyard where we could just go and shoot pickups whenever we needed to, really whenever we wanted to. Not that we were constantly shooting. It was pretty efficient. It gave me more flexibility with having to kind of be forced into having a location for so long. And I was allowed to make a little bit more mistakes. It had a lot of production value having this huge mineshaft in your backyard. And for the movie, it gave it extra production value. All these people, they overlap. People I've had help me on my short films kind of ended up helping me with my feature films. And so the trash removal people we knew helped us. They pulled up a truck and we just tore it down and demolished the set in probably an hour or two after spending, almost probably a couple months like putting it together. Yeah, we just tore it all down and moved on. My mom's very happy. Yeah, and looking back, it was crazy. It was super fun. It was cool seeing the actors because the actors, I kind of sold them on this idea. I was like, I'm gonna build a mine shaft in my backyard. we're gonna film the snow stuff first, and then when it warms up a bit, I'm gonna start building this mine shaft in my backyard. And they're like, okay. And like, I think they didn't realize how large and how it was almost like a little haunted house of its own. And I remember when they all got there and saw, they were all excited, and I think it really helped put them in the scene. And definitely seemed crazy, but I was crazy enough to finish it, and we did it. And I guess what it taught me was just to move forward and keep screwing in another screw. And just I couldn't estimate like how long this was going to take putting it together, because I'm not like an architect or even have really a construction background. I just had to put one pallet down on top of another pallet and screw it together and just keep moving forward piece by piece as much as I could afford at the time to build, and paint it as I could. And it was cool. I mean, you hear stories about like David Lynch kind of building all the sets for Eraserhead, and I can relate. And it's really exciting to sculpt your movie into existence. Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. It's like no one else was going to do it, so I had to do it. I'm super grateful that I did, and I think it helped show how committed I was to finishing this fucking movie. I was serious. That's the story of how we built the Mineshafts. Proud of what we did. Thanks for checking it out, and follow along for more stories like this. Next week, I'll be talking about how I cast this film with no budget, and I look forward to it. We'll see you there. Thanks.